dude, this hat changed my life. Like,
I believe you.
so I've even girls, like I've had girls buy hats from us and be like, I was walking around, I've never been hit on so much in my life. And it's like, once you get someone that, because then you realize that it's like they're, not only were they wrong about being worried about it, but the experience is so, it's so drastic that people kind of get hooked on it.
Oh, I'm telling you, I am living proof of that feeling, because we joke around that whenever I wear that hat and I go out and we party, it is an absolute like disaster that night. There's something that happens every time we wear this hat. It's like we always joke around. Oh, you're bringing out the hat tonight. Okay, it's gonna be a mess.
Oh no.
There's this element of like
hide your daughters.
Zander.
Yes.
Thanks, man, for being here.
No problem, man.
I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah.
We met pretty much, I think it was Brutopia, officially, I'd say. I think there was another time maybe before that. But
let's just say it's officially at Brutopia.
yeah, exactly. And I remember meeting you, got along right away. And I was like, I think I'd like to get him on the show. I think there's some stuff here that we could talk about related like really quickly. And, in the first 5 minutes of getting here, I think we could have spoken. I felt like we could have talked for like 2 hours already.
All you had to say was, we're going to talk about music and hats. I was like, okay, well, how long do we have?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, man. So again, thanks for being here. I'm really looking forward to hearing about, a hat company.
Yeah.
The whole music element of the group, the Guidestones and everything. So then
it all works together really.
Exactly.
By design a little bit.
Awesome. So man, what do you want to start with? What do you want to talk about?
I mean, if we could start off with like the fact that I do the music stuff and the hat stuff, and the whole intention really behind that, how it turned into that was not on purpose really.
Yeah.
So oddly enough, some people don't really understand that, but what it was I played music for a long time. Like I've played music since high school, but as far as the hat thing's concerned, I always wanted to have 2 streams of income.
Okay.
With music, because like it's kind of in today's world, relying on one stream of income, especially just music, is a little iffy.
Yeah.
So originally, I wanted to do tattoos, because a lot of my friends who are in bands that tattoo, they go on the road or they go do shows, and they bring a little suitcase with them, and they make tons of money while they're playing music.
I never even thought of like having a side hustle for tattoos.
Yeah.
The fucking great demographic.
Yeah. And it's just a little suitcase to bring, and you're constantly surrounded by your market really.
Yeah.
By people that will be interested in what you do. So I'm not good enough to do tattoos, unfortunately. Like it was just not, it wasn't in the cards. not going to happen. So for me, I was always really a hat guy. I always loved hats. And the way that I kind of approach things that I really get obsessed with, because it's usually 0 or 100 with me. It's like I don't care at all, or I can't stop doing it.
Obsession.
It's really it's a wide bracket that causes problems, and it could be great and it could be bad. But in this case, it was great because, like the drums, I started making drums. I kind of like broke down drum kits, built drums myself, because I wanted to. You learn how they work from the inside out. It's kind of like a car. You take it all apart, you look at it, you're like, why is all this here? What is it doing? Because that way too, like if ever you're playing or doing something where there's an issue, there's a problem that happens, where and how to fix it quickly. I started building drums, which I really liked. I did that for a little while, made a couple of my own drums. And then the hats ended up the same thing, because there was something I really was like looking for, like a hat that I wanted, specifically, that I couldn't find from any of the major companies that were out there. Just kind of, general public, kind of like conveyor belt kind of hat.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find what I was looking for. So after messaging a bunch of companies, I realized I was like, there has to be something in the middle of going and buying a good hat for $300, $350. Then me contacting these custom companies where it ended up being $600, $700, $800.
Yeah.
And I was like, there has to be something in between that. Like that's a huge gap. So I was like, what, I'm gonna order all this stuff on the internet, like cheap stuff, and just mess around in my house. Just
start fucking around.
For no other reason than just to do it for myself, and my girlfriend as well, who's my partner in the hat company. We started doing that together, and it kind of like just turned into something I didn't intend to. I got a sewing machine. I had no idea how to use that. I was completely an amateur at all of this. But I looked it up. I'm like, look, they've been making hats like this for 300 years. You know, it can't be that complicated in terms of how they do it. So I started looking it up and kind of messing around on my own, making, you know, kind of myself hats that I was wearing, you know, at home. No one really knew what I was doing. And eventually, I turned around and it was like, man, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty good. And that problem that I was running into earlier about in terms of the price discrepancy between buying a hat at a store and ordering something that you really wanted was so wide that I was like, well, I can fit in that hole.
Yeah, you found a space in the market.
I could fill that hole that like I was having a problem with as a customer.
Yeah.
So, you know, luckily I started looking around. I bought a bunch of old tools from New York from like the 30s on eBay and stuff, like antique, you know, stuff that isn't made anymore, especially at the time, which it was impossible to find, which is like a lot of stuff to block hats, like the felts, the sizing blocks, which there's a different block for every head size that you need.
Jesus.
And those are thousands of dollars if you want to buy those. So luckily what happened was I ended up actually finding in Montreal, just above the 40, there's a third generation hat production company that does a lot of stuff for the Jewish community. And they've been there. It's a Jewish family. They're great people at McGill Hats. And they've been around since, I don't know, the early 1900s in Montreal.
Holy shit.
So I can drive up to them and go and say, hey, what's up, guys? Like, walk around and be like, I want that, I want this, I want that, and just I skip on the shipping, I skip on all that stuff. So I was able to keep my prices like really competitive compared to a lot of other people that had to do all the logistics stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know, and then I realized I was like, wait a minute, this could be the tattooing thing for me for music.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know, everywhere I go, exactly like the tattoos, I'm surrounded by people that would be interested in what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if they don't remember me as the drummer from Guidestones, they'll remember me as the hat guy. You know, so I didn't really care which one it was. It didn't matter
as long as they remembered you.
Exactly. That's all I really cared about. So it really kind of just started working together where I was like, well, the music stuff's helping the hat stuff. The hat stuff's helping the music stuff. So I was like, this is kind of like a really symbiotic relationship that seems to be working really well right now. Because the thing with the hat stuff compared to music, where the music stuff is like people come to your gig, they buy a ticket, you're kind of entertaining them or they're paying for something from you. With the hat stuff, they're coming to you and you're making them cooler.
Yeah.
Like you're doing something for them instead.
There's a value for them in the end. Like they walk away with something that they really...
Exactly. They're not walking around with like your band t-shirt on, which is great, but you're changing their vibe,
style,
not just in what they listen to, which is, it's like way more profound in certain senses. Because I've had a lot of guys people period, where a lot of people say the same thing, like, oh, I love what you're doing, but I'm not a hat person. You know, I can't do that. It won't look good on me. I was like, it's not true at all. Like that, it's like tattoos, really. Like, you know, a lot of people do tattoos, but you go specifically to the person that you want to get one from because you like what they do. It's the same thing with hats. And you have to leave it up to us a little bit. Like that's what we do, you know? So it's like, you don't have to come in and sort of know every stitch that you want and tell me exactly, this is exactly what I'm looking for. It's like, no, my job is to figure it out with you, to size you up, hang out, you know, have a conversation and be like, look, this is for this look or this color, this matches you. Like, and it's a little bit trust based.
Well, it's you know, just to jump on that, it's exactly the experience that I had when I had a hat done for me. It was, you know, at first I was like, fuck, you know, it's funny. It's almost like you literally explained how I felt at the beginning of it, because I like wearing caps, but hats I was a bit like, you know, I don't know. Am I gonna vibe with a hat? You know, like a full blown hat. And I remember walking in and sitting down, and the guy was super chill. I'm blanking on his name now, but anyways, we just sat down and again, like, you know, went through the whole thing, like size, you know, do the head size and everything. Then looked at all these different things, and I started recognizing like, oh, there was like a style that I liked. Oh, this, and add that little touch to it, and add that, and then all of a sudden, what I noticed, what I liked most about it, the whole idea was being involved in the process of this thing too. Like you're there and you're working together with this guy, and
it's very personal.
It's very personal. No one else is gonna have this hat but you.
Well, that's the thing. Well, I was, even before we got on here, I was kind of explaining a little bit about that, why it's so appealing, especially now, you know, with the fast fashion kind of world we live in, where, you know, everywhere you go, it's the same thing. And you go to, I don't know say anything specifically, but I know there's giant box stores, the Zara's, the H&M's and stuff like that that people shop at, and not only is everyone else shopping at the same stores, but you end up buying the same thing like 3 times.
Yeah, so you see the same person like wearing this. Well, not the same person, the same hat on like 30 different people.
Yeah,
how you
yeah, and it's also
like,
it's also in
losing a bit of its uniqueness to it.
Oh, is it ever? I mean, more than ever, I think right now, especially with the Amazons and the sort of post-COVID, destruction of local industry, local businesses, which has been nothing but hard for everybody, and that's why it's, I think, more appealing than ever right now, that experience, because like I was telling you before, if you really think about it, or if anyone's listening and they really think about their experience buying anything, when was the last time that you had anything like that? Like when you went and paid money and someone sat there and like was paying attention to you and you were choosing things, and it was like you had that intimacy and that sort of personalization of it, in terms of what you're buying, like you said about no one else having the same hat as you. That's really like a big goal of ours, no matter who comes to us, because we have a lot of people that come to us and like you said about kind of going from caps to hats, where you're like, I don't know if I could do it, because a lot of people, like, for the most part, it will seem like you're kind of, it's loud. Like a lot of people aren't like these.
I think that's a great adjective.
Yeah.
It's loud.
Yeah.
So you have to be like, some people don't have that comfort with being loud.
No, some people aren't like that at all.
Yeah.
So the idea of like sort of making people look their direction even more is like anxiety inducing.
Yeah. It's so funny you say that. Exactly.
Which I get, but if the whole hat thing is, it could be both. Like,
yeah.
I think once people experience that, which I've had a lot of feedback from people that aren't like that at all. They're very reserved. They're very, they're not
conscious.
They're not out there at all. They don't like the whole look at me thing, which is, again, from experience, that is most people. So what you're doing is you're saying it's not this giant. You're not walking around with this giant sign on your head like, look what I'm wearing, because that's what it feels like.
Well, how do you get that person to shift? Because it's something that's kind of ingrained in them.
Yeah,
they have this thing that's always following them, yet you're bringing them into a space where ultimately there is some loudness to it, right? There is a statement coming.
Absolutely.
There's a statement.
Yeah.
So how do you get someone that goes from not wanting to make a statement to getting to a place where they feel comfortable walking out with this hat?
You know what? When you say it like that, it does sound a bit like you're playing like a therapist, a bit like you're kind of leading someone to grow.
Yeah,
it's kind of how I feel a little bit, because people get very because I've had a lot of friends come, like, especially early on, when the support that you get when you start something early on, it usually is sustained by friends around you and family, which is always
if it doesn't
necessary.
Start with them,
if you don't have that, you're in trouble already for sure. And they would come to me with the same thing, and they wanted to support and they wanted to, to help us out. But at the same time, you could tell that it was like, man, I'm doing this like because I love you, but I'm not sure. I'm still.
And I might buy it just to support you, but I'll keep it in my closet.
Still unsure. Which is I don't want that either. But I've had a lot of people that were in that situation and hesitant, and then they'll send me a text message later on, or a week or two later, and they'll be like, dude, this hat changed my life. Like,
I believe you.
So I've even girls, like, I've had girls buy hats from us and be like, I was walking around, I've never been hit on so much in my life. And it's like, once you get someone that, because then you realize that it's like, they're not only were they wrong about being worried about it, but the experience is so it's so drastic that people kind of get hooked on it.
Oh, I'm telling you, I am living proof of that feeling, because we joke around that whenever I wear that hat and I go out and we party, it is an absolute like disaster that night. There's something that happens every time we wear this hat. It's like we always joke around. Oh, you're bringing out the hat tonight. Okay, it's gonna be a mess.
Oh no.
There's this element of like
hide your daughters.
Dude, it gets crazy. So it's so funny that you say it that way, because it is an I found that hat became an extension of a personality that maybe I had a hard time tapping into.
That's exactly.
And it's like it brought out like this personality that
there's a confidence.
It's a confidence level where if like I wouldn't wear this hat in the past, but now I feel comfortable enough, and for some reason, because it's mine, it fits perfectly for my head.
Yeah,
it sits comfortably no matter what the fucking position is. Mm-hmm. It's like there's an element that you feel that it's unique. It's almost like your baby in a sense.
That's exactly kind of what I realized, that I'm not just selling like an actual hat to people. I am selling that.
It's like a personality
twist. I'm selling that experience.
Yeah.
That's really what it is, because everyone can have a hat, and you can have a hat in every different color, and there's tons of people that do it. But when you're selling something to somebody, whether it's clothes or when you're selling them the ability to be sort of a bigger version of themselves, a sort of a greater version of themselves, a more confident version of themselves than they would have been without it. I mean, it becomes a drug, really.
I was gonna say, how do you feel about that experience when someone calls you and says, "Dude, I fucking love this hat"?
I feel like a drug dealer. No, I'm joking. I'm kidding. But no, I mean, I feel amazing because me as a person, like I've always been a bit like that. Like I've never really had trouble doing my own thing, and I've never been scared of that or shy, I would say. But I feel like I'm just kind of selling a piece of that to people. Like I'm selling, like they walk around with a piece of me. Like I'm trying to give that like a bit of what I do to them to walk around with in their life every day, even when I'm not around.
It's funny you say that because I kind of have a bit of that feeling with the podcast itself. It's like I get to learn about someone. I see bits of myself in them. I see like, wow, like it's fucking great. You want to support. It's like you're kind of helping each other back and forth, and you talk about something.
Yeah, it's like you talking to you all the time.
Yeah, it's like, man, I love me. But it's like, dude, you feel a sense of like there's a value exchange that's more than money.
Well, that's sort of the point I was making about the difference with the hat stuff compared to necessarily the way it's different than the music stuff, because the music it's sort of it checks a bunch of other boxes, but the hat stuff specifically, it's not for me. Like like I said, when someone wears their hat or they go in public, I'm not there. I have nothing to do with this.
Yeah, it's true.
So what I'm doing is I'm adding to their life.
Yeah,
they're supporting me and helping me do my thing. But when every other time that they're walking around, or I'm not with them, or they're doing a gig, or they're going to hang out with their friends, or going out with their buddies, or whatever. I'm not there, but I am.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's like after you're done, the hat process is done. You technically have nothing to do with this anymore, but you have everything to do with it at the same time. Where it's this connection with this person that every time they're walking with this hat, it's like an extension of you that's there with them.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to sort of give people, because I feel like I've met so many people that are the only thing in their way.
Yeah,
like they're the only like
most people.
It's just in their head.
Yeah,
like I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do that. But in reality, there's nothing around them that is at all indicating that or proving that at all. It's really just yourself getting in your own way. And what I'm doing now is like I'm selling to them a bit more of that.
Yeah.
On top of an actual hat that no one else will have, or that they came over to because that's what's cool too. Like we do sell a lot of our stuff like elsewhere, the States, and we have a couple like Europe and stuff like that, which is great. It's a different thing when you sell a customized hat to someone where you're never going to meet them.
Yeah.
Because you kind of put it in the mail and you're like,
I hope they like this.
Because they're responsible for getting the size right.
Yeah.
That whole thing, that's a whole other,
it's a whole other process. It's almost like a whole
other experience. It's a whole other process completely.
So how do you try to make something like that that's so disconnected?
What you mean in personal when they can't come over?
Yeah. Like how do you make that? Because I remember when we were talking outside, there's this, we sit down, we can hang out, talk, do this hat, and it becomes like this kind of this bond, And this one now, it's through an Amazon order or whatever it is, and some guy doesn't know you, has no fucking clue about you.
Yeah.
And yet you're trying to bring out something from a person from a personal standpoint, but you have no fucking connection to it. It's just an IP address.
I usually go like stalk their Instagram. Like,
well, it makes sense. They're giving you all the answers.
I'm like, who is this person? What's their vibe? I do that a little bit for sure. I try to size them up and get it right, because when it's, especially on custom orders, it's not something that you could be like, it's the wrong size, return it and get another one.
Yeah.
It's made to measure.
Yeah.
So there's always that risk. We haven't had any issues yet, thank God, which is amazing. But it's a totally different experience. The people that can come over to my place that are close enough to come by, like I was saying before, like if you really think about it, today, like, besides, I guess, buying a tailored suit, which that's something I don't think a lot of people do often either. Yeah. At least people I know.
Yeah. Same
here. But yeah, that's kind of, I wanted to kind of, making hats is from the old world. It is something that's from a long time ago. And one of the only things I think that's still done the same way as it used to be, compared to a lot of things. I mean, you can't really, besides like maybe a Les Paul, it's like the only design that's still the same.
There's a few grand involved in
yeah. But so you come over and we hang out and we meet each other, and it's not in a store in public and smoke a joint if you want. You look at all the options. Yeah, you just don't get that experience anymore, and that's kind of why I'm doing this, because I've had a lot of people come to me too where they're you know, I don't know, they bought a wool hat, say the same hat 3 different times.
Yeah.
And just them doing that is already the cost of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So it's like buy nice or buy twice.
Exactly.
That's really the whole like, you know, motto really.
But you mentioned something earlier, and it kind of like maybe we could touch on that. But you had mentioned, you know, like sometimes people are in the way of themselves. You know, like on this hat. Were you in the way of yourself when you were thinking about opening up?
You know,
or starting
you know
the
what
process?
you know what, I can't say that was the case. The weird thing about a lot of the stuff that I've ended up doing or ended up turning into more than a hobby has been things that I never intended to do that at all in the first place.
Like what?
Like making the hats in the first place. I never intended to sell them. I never intended to make them for anybody else.
It was just a hobby
except me. I was like, I'm just gonna make the hat that I want because
Okay.
I can't find it for less than, you know, a ridiculous amount of money.
So did that remove the pressure from it? Because a lot of times, you know, when you go in, like I know in the past, every time I've failed at something, it's because I had an outcome intended.
You were staring at the finish
I
line.
was staring at the finish line, and I was like, okay,
That's the easy way to feel.
you know, exactly, right? Yeah. So, and then I noticed that everything that I had no plan really, I said, fuck it, I want to try this, I want to do it, I'm interested. I just want to read about it, I want to try it.
But that mentality is the only thing that allows you to get past the work required to get to that point.
It's true.
It's the
totally
only
agree
way.
with you.
Like that ignorance.
Yeah.
And I'll call it ignorance, but it really is because
the ignorance is bliss, right? You
it's
don't
not,
know.
you know, and my whole thing is like, you know, the fact that I have trouble seeing past my nose actually comes into like help me and a lot of stuff like this. Because like, you know, for the hats, like not intending to sell them and then turning around, it's like, oh, I'll do one for my brother. Oh, I'll do one for my dad. I'll do one for whatever.
Yeah.
And then you turn around and it's like, man, you look at it and you're like, this is actually good. Like you,
Yeah,
you know,
you're proud. You're kind of like proud of yourself in that
You don't see the progress.
Yeah.
Like you don't.
Yeah.
It's like going to the gym. You know, if you're focused on what you're gonna look like in a year, you're gonna get really, really discouraged having to go every week or a couple of times a week. It's if you're focused on every time you walk out of there that it's a win. You know, it's like I didn't know how to use this sewing machine. I would sit there for hours, stabbing myself, cursing. You know, just being frustrated and being like not thinking at the time like, why am I doing this? What the hell am I doing this? I could be like most people. I could be playing video games. I could be watching Netflix.
Yeah. So why were you
doing something?
Well,
but
what was it that
I don't know. There's this weird thing with me that when something clicks, when I get really into something, it's kind of like tunnel vision.
Dude, I feel you, man.
Yeah, it's like this hyper focused thing.
It's almost like a bit of insanity.
No, it definitely is.
It's like this obsession where I go to bed thinking about it, I wake up thinking about it, I write about it.
That's exactly.
I analyze it. I want to read about it. I want to
stop.
just figure out more and more, because then it becomes almost like and it's funny because it's like I remember did this strengths test or whatever once, and my first strength is learner. Like the moment I feel like I'm learning something and
when you're inspired,
it makes me feel inspired and just want to keep going.
Yeah,
and dig in and dig in and dig in
because it's addictive. Really, it becomes really addictive. And with me, it was so bad. Like I remember when I started, I was doing dance music for a long time. I did like back in the day. I used to do a lot of like disco and like house music, and I used to DJ a lot too. And I remember this is long. I was like in my parents' basement at the time. I was like maybe 20 years old. I used to roll out of bed, and I used to have my studio set up like in my room. Yeah. So I'd roll out of bed and start working on something. I would turn around. It was like 5:00.
Yeah.
I hadn't eaten. I'm gonna faint from like dehydration. I'm like, where did this day go? What happened? Like that's what would happen to me. I would just like completely lose track of everything.
I remember reading this that said, you found the strength in something or a passion for something when you lose track of time. It's the easiest indicator to know that there's an element, because time is like, it's so relative. You hate something, it's the longest fucking day. You love something, you're like, oh man, I wish I had more time. So it's all based on your point of view, your perception of the day. Yeah. And so it's funny you say that, because when I think of when I started playing music when I was a kid, I used to jam 6 hours in my room alone. Totally cool. Didn't even notice that I missed out on anything. I never felt like I missed out.
Because you're not actually experiencing time.
Exactly.
You're out somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's like transcending.
So you started with music.
Yeah. So
DJs
my brother and I have a twin brother, Ryan, who's also in my band Guidestones. He plays guitar and sings, and Ryan and I started playing together. We didn't grow up like super rich or anything like that. We had my parents. We were 3 boys, and Ryan and I had the basement as our bedroom in Brossard, and my parents, who are out of their minds. I still don't know how they did it, really, thinking about it now, especially. And you're wearing a Metallica t-shirt, which is appropriate, because that's pretty much why we started playing together. They got us a drum kit and electric guitar when we were like 13 or 14.
Were you guys busting their chops for it? Or
So
just...
well, like, so picture this, like, so like very entry level instruments in a basement where there's two kids trying to play Metallica who don't know what they're doing. You can't talk on the phone. You could hear it like 2 blocks away.
Yeah.
My parents like couldn't watch TV. They couldn't do anything. It was
Oh
like,
my God, that's insane.
I don't know how they did it. Like
Yeah.
it must have been like, you know, at a certain point and we definitely had to stop. It was like, okay, you guys can play when we're not home.
You drum pads.
Yeah.
You get drum pads, get headphones.
You know what? Actually, when I started playing, electronic drum kits were kind of still very expensive and like very
they're like
hard to
$3,000.
find. No, yeah,
Crazy some stuff.
Yeah, they're still like that. It doesn't really make sense. But yeah, you know, a volume knob on drums didn't exist back then, and so we would spend like all of our summers when my parents were working. Excuse me, we were on like summer vacation, so we would just jam all day. We would just play all day, and watch MTV. Like that's pretty much what we did all day. So, you know, that Ryan and I, that's the thing that has kept us together. I think our relationship, what it is, because I don't even know how to play with, like, alone. Like I don't even know how to jam alone.
I was gonna say, and when I think of certain people that I played with, it was like I've always played with them for so long that whenever I played with other people, it wasn't that I didn't enjoy the jamming, but it was different. It just felt like that was a jam. That was like a practice. This was a jam. Like I always felt like, especially when it came to writing too, it's like you just knew this person could feed or feel where you were going. Yeah. So it was like in the writing process too, you just fucking knew.
But it
like,
is a dance.
Yeah.
You're dancing with someone. It is a relationship. Yeah. It's very intimate. It's like sex, really. It's like a one night stand versus someone that you guys have been together a long time and know what each other wants and likes. Yeah. It's like a totally different thing.
That's so romantic.
I mean, I guess it does sound like that a little bit, but it is that intimate. It's like sort of telepathic. Yeah. And remember, throw in the fact that Ryan and I are twins.
Yeah, like twins as in identical twins?
We're not identical.
Okay, but
most people don't believe me. Maybe a little less now because we look a little more different in our styles. But growing up, no one ever believed us that we were not identical because they got us wrong all the time. They still do, but we're not identical. Yeah, but I grew up from day one with, you know, a friend at my house.
I was just about to say, like, what's that? I think that alone is like a topic.
There's nothing like that.
I was about to say, can you explain or try to explain? Because it must be difficult.
Yeah, I can
that
definitely
whole
try.
experience.
Yeah, it's funny because Ryan and I talk about this a lot because just that fact in itself, like growing up that way, made my childhood and my sort of entire experience growing, like, you know, up to this point in my life, like no one around me has ever been able to understand.
Yeah.
Like I always felt like I couldn't relate to other people at a certain level, not like in a bad way necessarily or like a sort of dysfunctional way, but there was this like sort of profound, really deep level where I was like, Ryan and I growing up together, having to interact with somebody, communicating with someone that much all the time compared to someone, say, who has maybe an older sibling or is an only child who gets it every once in a while. Like it's like supercharged in terms of your social awareness, your sensitivity to others. Like I had to become sensitive to other people's feelings and consider them in a way because it was, how do I explain this? I needed him. I needed him to enjoy myself. Like for me to we play video games together. We played sports together.
True.
You know, if Ryan was having a bad time, if I'm having a bad time, then the other one's having a bad time.
Yeah.
Because I need him to have a good time. I need him to play music. I need him to jam. You know what I mean? Like we need each other.
And how is that, would you say, like as you're getting older now and because you become
There's
more
problems
independent?
that come with that.
I was going to say, because you become, like when you're a kid, you're always hanging around together.
Yes.
But then as you get older, you start having independent lives.
The thing that I think we've had to face compared to most other people who have their own set of things, specifically one thing that was different was the figuring out individuality.
Yeah.
Figuring out who you are as an individual, which is, as a twin growing up, especially when you're close with someone and doing everything together, that becomes a real sort of danger, which is not doing that and being too dependent on each other, which that's something we've had to deal with a lot growing up, you know, and make sure that that's why like I've gone and played with a lot of other people. The whole DJ thing, Ryan was not into that stuff. Like, you know, we've done our own things. Yeah. You know, we've had to, but at the end of the day, because I grew up, like I said, learning how to play music with a guitar player from day one, So like the idea of like going to my jam space and playing drums alone sucks.
It must be awkward.
It sucks. Like I don't even know how to do it.
Yeah.
Like so it's like it's a bit of a weird situation because I grew up with a best friend and like all the time. Like it's like having a sleepover all the time.
I was supposed to say.
So you gain a lot of really cool advantages from that. So like you know, on the positive side, the negative side is that you lose a lot of privacy. Mm-hmm. We grew up in the same. Like I said, we didn't have a huge house or anything, so we had the basement where it's like, think about what that looks like when two young guys start getting girlfriends.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to have my girlfriend over tonight. It's like, well, you got to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, you got to leave.
Like,
and then
you know, it's like, don't come home until, 11 or whatever. It's like, we had to really share a space. So the idea of, my own space was like very foreign to me.
Yeah.
So, that, which is, I'll take it, versus like the good that it brought, which is, I know a lot of twins growing up that hate each other.
I was about to say, it doesn't necessarily mean that's your best friend.
In fact,
it could be like your enemy.
I've seen that more often than not, where they kind of don't have much of a relationship, or not necessarily don't like each other, but just don't really mingle or coexist. Yeah. And I know I grew up with a lot of friends who have brothers, who didn't like each other and had a weird relationship in terms of how they treated each other. I never understood it. Yeah. It was always so bizarre to me. I was like, man, like, how did these people not see what I see, which is like how fortunate I am to have a person around me like this all the time.
Well, how were your parents though with you guys? In a sense, like did they maybe balance that out, and that's why you guys had that opportunity to kind of see the positive outlook of it? Or?
I don't think that my parents, I don't think that they really even were like I don't think they really even thought about that.
Yeah, sometimes it's at a level
because they're just like doing their thing, trying to keep us fed and the lights on. So. And especially back then where, there's Ryan and I, then 4 years later, our younger brother came in the picture. So it's like we were three young boys. Our dog was male. My mom was just like overwhelmed, my poor mother.
Sausage fest, dude.
No, dude, it was male. Everything was male. My mom, honestly, I don't know how she did it. But yeah, no, I kind of grew up, my dad really instilled in us that was like, I don't care what's going on with you guys. If you guys are fighting or if there's some shit going on, I don't care. You guys, at the end of the day, you're brothers. You guys are all you guys have. And when no matter what, you show up. And you can bitch at each other after. I don't care, but you're there no matter what. And that's
pretty big though. Like
that was a big deal, and we that definitely landed with all of us, and we've had to how do I say this? Apply that several times growing up for sure, if I can say it that way, and be there for each other, because despite everything, I guess that's one of the biggest things that my father taught us growing up. That I think about a lot today, that I'm thankful for, because especially with the music stuff, like we were a sports family growing up. Like my father was drafted to play pro baseball. Like he was a huge baseball player. So Ryan and I, the same thing. We went into baseball and football, and I played baseball for 15 years. I played super high level baseball. I played AAA. Then I played for Team Quebec, where we were in the States, and we were the best team of our age. In the country.
Okay.
So
it seems like there was a completely different path happening at one point.
Yeah. So that's the whole kind of uniqueness, I would say, or like it is definitely out of the ordinary, because I was definitely the athlete, kid growing up, 10 years of football, 15 of baseball, doing all kinds of stuff, and that's what my dad knew. And Ryan and I and Tyler too. We were all very successful at sports, but the music thing was something my dad had no idea about. Like that wasn't. Yeah. Our uncle, his brother was a drummer, and he was a musician. We have music in our family, but my dad wasn't. It wasn't like he wasn't like playing or jamming or whatever. He was playing a lot of music in our house, but he didn't know anything about doing that.
Yeah, and it was just for him. It was just listening to.
Yeah,
music.
and like anybody, I think from that era, like if you talk how their parents react to you saying, "I want to play music," they're like,
"You're gonna be broke." Like it's gonna be a hard life.
Go to school. What the fuck's wrong with you?
Exactly.
Go into marketing or something. Yeah. Which it was what it was, So the music thing became very punk rock for us, because sports was the thing that my dad knew that he introduced us to, that he drove us to the games. Like he put us in as kids before we even knew what was going on. Yeah. So that was like what he gave to us. And it's something that is gonna give us. It's going to reap the benefits the rest of our lives. The lessons you learn in sports are. I was about to forget the actual sporting questions. Yeah. The accountability, the pressure, the
Team aspect.
discipline.
Team.
I think the discipline was the biggest thing. Was when we started playing music, the concept of like having to practice was not weird.
It wasn't foreign. For you guys, it was like you already had a weekly
practice. This
practice.
is how it goes.
Yeah, you can't
you
get
want
better.
to get good at something, you practice at it.
I was about to say that. Like, that is probably one of the biggest hurdles for most musicians is being responsible,
it's discipline,
accountable, and disciplined to actually show up and do the work that's intended for you to progress.
From what I've seen, that seems to be the thing in the way of everybody.
Yeah.
Because even growing up, we would have we would start a band in high school, and Ryan and I coming from doing 3 nights a week of practices, 2 games on the weekend, sports seasons overlapping each other.
Yeah.
We were used to it. It was always go all the time. Yeah. So especially with music, we loved it so much that I would do it every single day if I could.
Yeah.
It wasn't work to me,
Well, kind of like sports at one point. I'm sure it wasn't work. If you're making it at a high level of sports,
yeah,
you're not. It's not work. It's something you want to do. Or else
it's just,
you get weeded out.
When you had been doing sports that long, and that young, you've already lost total. Like you didn't see the work. Like you were taught. You were put into it. You had no idea what was happening. So you didn't think like that.
It's part of your DNA.
Yeah,
at this point.
like it never like that. You never had to learn that because it was just like, oh, okay, I'm here. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's practice. Let's do it.
Dad said we're going. Let's go.
Reps.
Yeah. So when it came to music, like for me, because I loved and was so much more passionate about music. That was the thing that showed me what actually being passionate about something meant.
How did you know? Like, so you're playing baseball now. You're telling me you made fucking AAA.
Yeah.
You're playing baseball 15 years.
Yeah. How did I realize
what was that turning point for you?
That's a great question. So the last season I played baseball was a team called Les Ailes de Québec, which is the best. It's essentially like the best group of kids, about 16 or 17, 18-ish, in Quebec, in the province, on one team. So I made that
all-star team of that.
So
group.
what I did is I made that after the AAA team. So it was like the best of everybody in Quebec. And so I was on a team of guys, of people that were, a lot of them ended up getting drafted pro, and a lot of them were way better than me.
Yeah.
And it was such an experience because it made me realize that I was like, especially playing music, where I was like, the last season I played, we were in Thunder Bay, Ontario for the Canadian Championship, where it was a tournament of every best team from every province in the country. It was like Canada, World Championship or country championship, and we won. And I remember we won, and I was like, okay, so I just won the biggest thing you can win in Canada at this age. The next step is either you get drafted and go to the States, or you play for the Junior Elite League, which is here. And I was like, I'm done. I think I'm done.
That's a fucked up.
I think I'm done.
Dive into that if you can.
Yeah.
I feel you to a certain extent.
Because I saw the road ahead where I was like, it was as simple as, are you willing to do the work required to go to that way, or are you not? And I was like, I'm not. Yeah. It's not in me like that. I feel like I've done what I wanted to do.
You feel satisfied.
Yeah. I feel like I'm not willing to continue giving what I've been giving, to go further in that direction, to end up potentially or to gain something that isn't in my bones.
Yeah.
Because I was on a team with people that it was.
Yeah, you know it. You could
smell it.
You could smell it.
They exude it. You're like these. It's like when you get in a room with somebody that is so good at something that you're like, they don't even have to say it. I know it's in the air.
I know a specific moment that I could completely relate with that.
Yeah.
I was in college sitting down. It was my 3rd year at Vanier studying music.
Okay, you study music.
Yeah, and I was just there, and I was sitting down, and I remember I was really proud of the stuff that we were doing. It was really fun. Don't get me wrong. Like I really enjoyed a lot of the experience. Some of this experience I hated it. I thought it was school kind of ruined music a bit. Yeah. But I remember sitting next to this one guy, Jordan Peters, fucking phenomenal guitarist. He's actually he was playing with Lauryn Hill at one point. Like like next level shit. And this guy is phenomenal. And I remember we both started 3 years ago, and I'm seeing him and I'm seeing me. And we're not even close at the same level. And not in a jealous way. It was like I'd watch him in
do you know what that is though? That's an honest way though.
Yeah, it was an honest way.
You're not being delusional. You're not altering like reality.
I am seeing the where I am today on the line, like a scale of 1 to 10. And I'm seeing where I am and I'm seeing where he is. And it's not a question of, oh man, I wish it could be him. I was like, wow, there is just like a passion in this guy and there's a drive in music that he has gone to levels that I'm just not willing to go anymore. I'm not that, you know what? I'm actually not that interested anymore. And
you know what? You know what it is? What that was a big moment for you in terms of, like locating like where you sit.
Yeah.
Like where am I?
Yeah.
Like where do I sit in the sort of hierarchy of just the people around me?
Yeah.
And that's that's actually very big of you, because a lot of people have trouble doing that. It's accepting like reality and what you're willing to do. It's not shitting on yourself.
Yeah.
But it's being honest, in a way where you're like, that's what that looks like.
Yeah.
I now know I am not that. Not that it's a problem, right? But am I willing to? Am I throwing myself into that ring? Am I going to go and jump into that level or into into that? How do I say this? Like a cage?
Yeah.
No. So with baseball, it was like more. I got all the way to there, and I felt really proud of myself about what I had done, and I really did succeed. But when it came to music, I knew that I was like, music is the thing. Music is the thing that I will do anything for. Mm-hmm. That I don't even think about the work. It's never been work to me. I would get up every day and do it without question. And once I knew that, I was like, why am I not doing that then? Why would I not put the effort into that? So I was like, well, look, I just won a Canadian championship. I threw a no-hitter in the Canadian championship against PI. I was like, I have a gold medal. This is it for me. Yeah. I'm going to go out on top.
How did your dad take that conversation?
Like I'm not going to say he took it. I'm not going to say that he took it bad, because I think as a father, he probably was aware of it a little bit too.
He was starting to sense it.
Yeah. Because, baseball was his thing too.
Yeah, it's kind of like,
and I think,
you can't help it. I'm a dad now.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And there's an element of you that you cannot, like, you try to stop this. It's not you. It's another person. And they have their own life and they're going to do their own things, but you can't help it at times. Like, you would love it. You feel like it's a weird thing. You have to remember that it's not a reincarnation of you. It's a new life.
You know how many people can't do that?
I know.
Oh my God.
And it's tough. And I know it. I can see it.
Man.
I know this. I'm keeping that even in me. Like, remember, you have to remember this is not.
Your kid's lucky, man.
Dude, I'm like.
Hey, your kid's lucky.
Bro, I literally tell myself, this is not like I have music things in the house for her. Like there's a little piano, little stuff. But I put sports stuff. I put stuff. I'm like.
You don't decide?
I'm not going to decide. Like whichever one you're going to lean towards, all I have to do is kind of like listen. And what I want to do is, okay, if I see you leaning towards piano, okay, I'll open the door for piano for you. But I'm not going to say, now that you open this door, you got to fucking stay there, So I'm realizing.
You know how many people I saw growing up, not just sports, but music too, that it was completely ruined.
Yeah. It becomes torture.
No, it was ruined for them.
Yeah, I believe.
Like they could have been capable of a lot, and the world will never know, because they were forced to sit there and cry and play piano, or go to play a sport and show up and be crying and not want to be there at all. And the entire experience is so ruined for them.
And then there's the other side of it too, is that every time you did it, you were congratulated and you were like loved more by obviously the people you want loving you the most. So
I mean,
it's kind of like, so when you come home and like I'm assuming, right? But I know for me, I could imagine that in a house filled with sports, and sports was a main factor. The times you come home with a trophy, you must feel like a rock star, maybe not the right word to use. Never,
no,
but like you're the celebrity in the house.
Of course, because when you're younger, feel like that experience. Honestly, now that I think about it, has nothing to do with you feeling good about actually getting a trophy.
Yeah,
it has to do with you feeling good about making your dad happy.
Well, dude, everyone ultimately is either trying to piss off their parents or fucking make them proud of them. It's like one or the other usually.
So, and that's exactly what I meant about this sort of. The turning point with music, and why it is what it is for me today, because compared to sports, music wasn't given to me. It wasn't my dad's. It was mine.
Yeah.
And for a long time, Ryan and my dad didn't really didn't really like. He wasn't really stoked about it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Like we did it against him and against my parents actually for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, them saying, you know, discouraging it and being like, "Yo, you sure?" And like, with all the logical things really that a parent would say.
But now that you're older, right? How old are you?
Yeah, I just turned 37.
Okay, dude, I feel you. I'm 40.
Yeah.
Okay. When I think of the things that my parents told me to not make me go down the road of music, I understand now why they said those things. I looked at it back then like, fucking, they don't want to help me, and fucking, they don't get what I'm passionate about, fucking assholes.
It's punk rock, Dad. You wouldn't get
punk
it.
Rock. It's punk rock. Exactly, dude. It's fucking metal. You don't get it. And it's funny because all they were saying was they wanted some sort of security because for them, there was a lack of security in their life.
No, but I understand how terrifying that must be.
Yeah.
Because you're like, realistically, they're not wrong.
Yeah. But
it is illogical. It is unlikely. It is difficult. But what I realized later on, not only were they right, but without even knowing it, what they're actually doing, if you want to do something that badly, like you need to prove it.
Yeah.
And
it's not going to be logical.
But it's a form of being tested.
Exactly.
Like the world is testing how much you want to do it. Do you want to do it against your dad? Do you want to do it when your mom's not stoked, or when no one's showing up to your gigs, or when they, you know, they're not supporting you. They're not making it easy.
There's no money.
That's what I'm saying. Like we would do it against that. And so years and years later, when we ended up, you know, actually it was in Guidestones after being in shitty metal bands for so long, where my parents actually started coming out to the shows. And it was like, holy shit.
The cross.
It's almost like, no, but it's like after all that time, you kind of feel like you got a respect from your father.
100%.
And I don't know if there's anything really more valuable than that. It's like earning your father's respect against him.
Yeah.
That's a fucking big deal.
Well, dude, it's always like, you know, these stories, you know, it's almost, that's what I like about hearing stories like this is that it's not really the industry. It's really this dynamic of, you know, figuring out what it is you actually really like doing and executing on it. Like that's like, I find the hardest part is actually admitting to yourself what you actually really like doing. And then having kind of the balls to do it because you know, like you said, people aren't going to show up. There's going to be people telling you can't do it.
Well, do you know how many times I've wished that thing was like accounting?
Dude, I wish I could love doing something.
I have friends that have the passion I do for this, but for their electrician company.
Dude.
And I'm like,
I don't get it. I wish.
And you know, it's funny because a lot of people misuse the word lucky. They're like, "Yo, you're so lucky you found." It's like, first of all, luck ended like within the first 3 months of doing this. I promise you.
Yeah.
But when I just kind of flip it back to them, I'm like, lucky. I'm like, you're the one with like the giant house and the 2 cars and the kids and everything like that. It's like you're passionate about something that makes money.
Yeah.
That is like on paper.
Yeah.
I sell art. Yeah. It's like worth whatever anyone wants to pay for it.
Which could be worth so much or nothing.
It fluctuates more in the stock market. So it's like, you know, that's like, it's kind of why I'm attracted to it. It's like dangerous.
Yeah.
It's because it is hard. Because it's not, there's no like set route. There's no like structure to it.
Exactly.
You know?
You're building, what I notice when it comes to anything that comes with art is you're building something that only you can really see. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, like the accountant route, like my brother's an accountant, my other brother's an engineer. So I feel you, dude. Like I wish I loved something that was in that same track record. It would be so easy to think of constantly that way. And even sometimes when you're in it and you're doing it, you feel. You know something is off.
Oh yeah.
And
but you're talking about figuring out like what that thing is.
Exactly.
And I do notice that a lot of people often will bring that up to me, like how much they're not jealous, but they're like envious of how much I enjoy what I'm doing. And it's like, it didn't just fall out of the sky.
Exactly.
You know, am I fortunate that my parents, and you know, at 13 or whatever, bought us instruments? Yes. That was one of the luckiest things and one of the best things that ever happened to me. I had nothing to do with that. But after that, it had nothing to do with a handout or someone.
You woke up and you rolled over.
I wasn't naturally talented at music at all.
Yeah.
Like, I came from sports, so like again, the 2 things that carried over that was the discipline and the hand-eye coordination.
Yeah. The intangibles.
With something like drums, which is, you know, it obviously involves both of those things. And the way I describe it to people is, drums is like dancing and fighting at the same time.
Yeah, it's true.
So
and so much independence. Just you have four.
It's complete.
It's four
it's complete
instruments you're playing at
separation
the
of
same time.
all your limbs. It's rhythmic. It's power. It's finesse. It's like golf and football and dancing together.
Yeah.
You know, so it involves all of those things. So, you know, I had to develop that. Like I was self-taught. Like I was one of those guys that before YouTube.
It's like a whole other
where
planet.
you know I would be like, you know, recording VHS tapes of Metallica concerts on TV.
I know.
And just like rewinding it and like slow motion, like how do you do that drum filler? Like how do you play the guitar part? And I would just go over there and just watch and watch and watch.
Dude.
And so that's how I kind of had to learn. Like I was self-taught, and my influences to play music in the first place were, turns out, the worst examples of musicians in the world.
I was going to say that.
Whether it's
They're
Lars
okay.
or, you know, I love him to death, but Lars or, you know, Tommy Lee or something like that, where it's like, back then it was like, do a bunch of drugs and play as fast as you can.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that literally only works for Metallica. They're the only band that's ever been able to do that. It's like, that's not actually being a musician.
Exactly. Well, that was, I think, this, you know, it's funny you say that. That's when I think I realized at one point that I wanted to be a rock star and not a musician.
Yeah, two different things.
And it's two completely different things. Because to be
things.
that musician was the amount of work. And I remember seeing Jordan as an example. He was in a fucking pod, dude, every day. And he was practicing his ass off. And I was getting high.
Yeah.
And I was just
yeah.
smoking weed and I was just partying and I wanted to play. And we played a lot of shows at the time. And that was the thing that I loved most, was we'd play a lot of shows and it was the after parties and it was all the stuff like that. So to me, it was, you know, that was music.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it was the image of music, of like the concept of what I'd been sold on MTV and everything is what I wanted to be. And then there were certain things about it that I'm happy I did, because there was a discipline that came with me. Like I played sports, but I didn't give a shit about sports. And then once music came in, it was like, that was my discipline. So it's funny, like music taught me.
You feel like that brought discipline to your life?
Yeah. For me, it was.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of me.
It's the opposite. For me, sports was the most annoying thing in the world. I used to hate playing sports. I used to hate, not that I hated, I knew I didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
I liked watching. I liked.
But isn't that the thing that gave you the ability to actually understand the things that you did like?
Exactly.
Because
The contrast was so big.
You know what it feels like to hate what you're doing.
Oh, dude.
So you know what it feels like to like it too.
Dude, soccer. I remember my parents Italian. And I had to play soccer. I was like, the one sport I hate was soccer.
How rough was that growing up? Italian and not liking soccer,
dude. They looked at me like I was an alien.
You're like a leper.
Yeah, and then I wanted to play. I wanted to be in Guns N' Roses since I was 6. You know, so it's like they were like, no, go into soccer, go into all these things. And I was like, every time.
No, Mom, I want to smoke cigarettes.
Yeah, I smoked this. My first cigarette was at 5 years old. I smoked. So I'm looking at it, and I'm like, and I had recognized that, like you had said, there was such a contrast in the two worlds.
Oh, because
it was obvious.
It's physical.
Yeah, it was obvious. I would be like sick, in like mentally and physically, of being on a soccer field. Like, oh my God, I used to walk to the game, kill me. And then all of a sudden, I used to come home and I used to grab my guitar. 6 hours later, I didn't even know.
Couldn't get you off of it.
And so that's, to me, funny enough, music was where I learned about discipline and like practice, and you want to get better. But then when I got to college, I don't know, I just stopped practicing. I realized like I wasn't putting the love into that anymore.
That's
and
okay though.
And exactly. And that's why I was like, I had that question, like, what am I going to do now? Because I don't want to fucking be here anymore.
Yeah. I mean, for me, and I guess Ryan as well, the whole thing with us is that like, it's like I can't stop. Like there was one point, we had a band that had broken up just before Guidestones had started, and we had been in it a long time. It was getting a little stale, and it ended. It was a couple of friends that we had from high school, and I still love those guys, but the band fell apart.
Yeah, sometimes.
And we had put a lot of time and effort into that, and it gets sour. Like you get turned off by the whole idea that you're like, because of what you put into it, it gets kind of associated to frustration and stuff. So the band broke up, and I sold everything I owned. Like I sold all my drums. I sold everything.
The extreme route.
I did not play music
or
think about it for at least a year. And during that year, what I did is I just like put time into all the other shit that I neglected in my life, which is working and saving money. I bought a condo, and then after that, at the end of that year, I was playing softball and doing all kinds of stuff. Just like whatever, nothing related to music. And we were just hanging out, and I just got my new place, and we were just like kind of jamming and stuff. And it was just like this epiphany. I was like, why the f did I stop doing this? Yeah. What the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
And then so I got back into it, and now it's like, it's kind of like I've integrated into my life in a way where it's like it doesn't really matter what's going on around. It's kind of fixed.
It's a central part of it.
It's a necessity, really.
So now with the Guidestones,
Yeah,
like you guys have released. I think you had released the last song was 2021.
Yeah, 2021 we put out a full record.
Great album.
Thanks. Yeah, it was called "Keeps Me Up." We did it.
By the way, the cover, the artwork. Where was that shot? Because I saw like the
that was
TV.
at.
It looks like a famous like deli or something.
Yeah, I can't remember I can't remember. It was that hot dog joint there.
Where?
It's closed now.
Whatever.
They just closed it. It's in town. I can't remember the exact name of it. I'll find it for you.
Okay.
But it
looked familiar when I saw.
Yeah. We wanted it because it had those cool deli booths and stuff. And the way we did that, actually, the kid that's on the cover of the record was the son of someone my girlfriend works with. This younger kid named Miles, and we hired him. We got him and his mom to come, and we took a bunch of shots with him at the deli, and we had like attended on a certain angle and a certain sort of frame that we wanted, and we were like setting that up and getting it and stuff like that, and then we were kind of messing around, and he was sitting at the counter, and I saw him like, so I went and put like that tinfoil hat on him, and we shot the photo just off the cuff, and that ended up being the record, the record cover that we shot there. He looks a lot like Ryan and I when we were younger too. That's why it was kind of funny. Guidestones had a lot to do with that. But yeah, we did the record in 2021 at Freak Shop with Dave Trena, and that was my first experience like in like the full studio record thing. It was the first album I had ever made, so I was so excited about that. It was like a bucket list thing for me. Like when you're a kid, if I could go back to myself when I was younger, I'd be like, check it out, man, you made a record. I would like freak out,
Dude, that was the one thing that I always hoped.
Yeah.
Before music ended for me, is we ended up releasing an EP, and it was and I wish we would have done a full record.
Yeah, you know what? You mentioned EP and records, man. That is a different experience, man.
Oh yeah, we did 5 songs, which was great, but 10 is a whole other game, and it's a whole other thing. Yeah. And there's a part of me that wish, because we had the 10 songs, but we were like not enough money.
You're not dead yet, man.
Yeah, and that's why it's like it's always one thing I said I'd love maybe one day to somehow do that if I could find like the passion to write a song again. That's kind of like the disconnect.
Yeah, you can't force it.
Exactly. So
I hate that part about it, that you're not really. Anyways, for me, like the creative process is always it's so taxing.
It's so taxing.
Like
to do it right, it's taxing.
You know what? For some people, it isn't. Like I know a lot of people can write like 25 songs and be like, oh yeah, I have that, just pump it out. But me, it's like this all encompassing like full-time job.
Yeah,
it's really, really exhausting.
It's taxing physically, mentally, and like you were saying about the recording, it's an experience that I needed to record.
Yeah, it's a personal
moment. Thing. It's a personal thing. It was like a diary in a sense.
Yeah,
of like that
and you know what? Dave at Freak Shop, like a lot like the hat stuff, like that's kind of part of what Dave and Derek are selling over there, which is the experience.
Yeah.
That it's never been easier to record and cheaper to record stuff in your basement, but what they're offering is not just like what their knowledge and their gear and their expertise, but it's the studio experience. So that's why it was so fun for us to go there. And Dave in particular, the fact that I got to record with a drummer for the first time compared to a lot of other people that we tracked with who weren't drummers, he just understood to a level that a lot of people didn't. So it was a great experience. And for the new EP that's coming out, we have a new single out, "Taking the Long Way." It's out everywhere right now. That we did. This was totally different than the record, because what Ryan and I took on this time was that we actually recorded everything ourselves.
Oh.
So we tracked everything.
You guys did the whole recording?
The drums, the vocals.
How was that? That's a whole other ball game, dude.
That was like that was one of those times when I like halfway through it, I was like, what did I do? Like what did I just like what have I taken on? Like because there was like, whether it's like your recording program, like we're using Logic, but it's learning sort of your recording program from the ground up, tracking drums, actual like real drums for the first time, doing that right, the guitars, the vocals, editing, everything, so that I literally get everything together, pass it off to Dave, who did the EP as well, to mix, and he essentially gets to drag and drop it and not have to do anything, just do the mix.
Yeah.
So he's getting it like on a platter, really.
Yeah.
But the work that goes in before that was like, it was like going to school and writing the songs and fixing the songs all at the same time.
What made you want to do that? You like?
You know what made me want to do it was because I turned around, especially after COVID had subsided, and I was like, well, we went through some crazy drama in the band. We had a member that left. the personal relationship that I had with that person was difficult. Let's just say that it was a hard experience for me to get over and to sort of get past. But once that happened, it was like, well, I have the computer, I have a house, I have the drums, we have the room, I have friends around me, I have people with knowledge. So I was like, you know what, man, we're gonna do it ourselves. Fuck it. Like, why not?
How hard could it be?
How hard can it be?
It's always that line.
And you turn around like a year later and you're like, oh my God.
I'm going to kill myself.
This is why you pay for this. Yeah. But no, it was really cool, man. We sent it to Dave. The first single's out now. And I don't know if I can work with anybody but Dave because he's been around us so long that he's so in tune with what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to sound like, what the band is about, that he's learned that over just experience with us, that it's something that I can't just go to somebody else and they're just gonna understand it right away. So Dave's been a real asset for us, and he did a great job on this one. The first single's out. We have 6 songs coming for the new EP. Shows are on the way. One of the songs is a cover of an old Allman Brothers song, Midnight Rider, which I'm really stoked about.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, I took that on. We took that on fully ourselves. So compared to the record, if we want to talk about the difference in experience, the experience, the record was me being on, like, playing drums on an album. Like my job was do the drums. Mm-hmm. Okay, fine. Do the drums, get it done, get the job done. Okay, cool. Did that. Accomplished that. This time, I mean, it's so much more personal because the actual sound of everything and all the songs.
It wasn't so singular for you.
No, like we just like, could not be more purely us in terms of like hands in the pot, really.
Yeah.
You know, there's no other influence in here. There's nobody else responsible for anything sonically on this record than us. And
so what did you take from that though? That it was you, that it's so much you.
It's, well, you know what? It's like any artist. Like, I try to explain to people, it applies also to the hat stuff, if you want to tie that into, which is, imagine how intimate or, you know, nervous you would be if your best friend comes over to your house and he's like, dude, make me a pair of pants. And you stand there and you're like, cool. And you make him a pair of pants. And he comes back like 2 weeks later and tries them on in front of you.
Yeah.
And you're like, I hope you like them. I hope it fits. It's just so, it's so intimate. And you feel very exposed, which is like kind of what if you're doing art correctly, that's really what it is. So whether it's the hats or the music, that's really what the feeling is. It's like, this is really as purely me as it can get. And then you put that out there and you're like, oh man, I don't know what people are going to think about it.
Yeah.
You know, not that that's why you do it, but at the same time, it's like, you
can't hide it though.
No, yeah. But you know what? It's like, you get over that and it becomes fun. Cause you gain the confidence and you start to prove to yourself that you are capable and that you can do. And that's what their last record gave to us, was it kind of confirmed that what was in my head translated to other people.
Yeah.
And you don't know if there's like a disconnect between those things. Like, am I seeing what this actually is? Or am I seeing like some altered version because it's mine, that, you know, someone who's impartial maybe won't get it, but it definitely landed exactly the way that we wanted to. So I was like, okay, cool. Now you have that check. We're like, what's the next step? Well, I'm going to do fucking everything this time, you know? So it's like, it can be more, would I do it again? I don't know, but it's definitely the most personal thing.
Well, I think everyone thinks that just because you do something, and this is something that I've also started to learn about myself, is that just because I've accomplished something doesn't mean I have to keep doing that. So it's like something, you know, it's like, I remember, you know, obviously it's not on the same level, but I went skydiving. And they're like, oh, you gonna go again? I'm like, no, dude, I don't. Like, I did it. Like, I don't care for another, like, if there would be something else, yeah, let's try it. But that specific thing, I'm good. So it's kind of like sometimes doing the album, now that you know what it's like, doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do all of your future music. Like, no, it's just kind of like you understand the experience.
No, it's definitely
more,
not like, it's definitely not like, okay, well, now I'm stuck doing this all forever.
Exactly.
No, in fact, the way that it works is that I will never actually do that. What I mean by that is it will never happen this way again.
Yeah, it can't.
It can't.
It can't happen. It's like, even if you wanted it to be that way, you can't. It's the first time you wrote an album.
But thank God, thank God, because the you know, making mistakes and then realizing it 5 steps later.
Oh fuck, dude.
You know, that's what it was.
I can't. But that's what I'm saying is like, there's so many people that don't play music, don't understand the amount of layers there are to every single track, and that you fuck up on one of those layers that are especially the foundational ones, dude, you have to like redo the song.
No, it's hours.
Yeah, it's days. You gotta go back in.
I've gone into like I've done like days and days of editing or correcting something or working on something, only to turn around and be like, "There's a button for that."
Oh, dude, that's the worst. When you find out 17 steps later that it could have been done in 2.
But that's exactly what happened to me with the drums too, being self-taught, where it was like years and years later that because I kind of figured out everything on my own, where I was like, well, you hit these plateaus and these roadblocks where you're like, the only way to improve or to get to the next level is to have been doing the fundamentals correctly that you've been incorrectly doing this entire time. So I had to go back and fix like fundamental things about how I was playing music
hard, man.
Years later because of being self-taught.
Because that shit's cement now.
Yes.
Like you got to crack through
you're
that
You're not only trying to learn something, you're trying to like correct a bad habit.
Yeah.
Which is like twice the work. So having to do that was the exact same experience with tracking the record, where it's like make a mistake, only realize it way later, then have to like essentially revert to like go back days and days of work that you've done just to fix this problem and do it right. But and that's why I'm saying why I'm so excited is that it will never happen again.
Yeah.
And that's like the best thing ever. Honestly. Not that I won't do something like this again. Of course I will, but not that way.
Yeah.
So
you can't be, right?
Well, thank God. Thank God.
Dude, so look, we spoke about hats. We spoke about music. We spoke about sports.
Yeah.
What else do you want to? How do you want to end this?
How do I want to end this? I mean, I guess I would say, if you're looking for a hat, follow me on Instagram, East Crown Hat Co. If you like the band, Guidestones on Instagram as well. We have a new single out, Taking the Long Way, from the new EP, For the Birds, is coming out very soon. Yeah, the support's always appreciated, and thank you, man, for having me on here.
No, it's my pleasure.
It's always fun. People have told me for a lot, like years and years, like, dude, you gotta start a podcast, man. You gotta start a podcast. I was like, I don't know, man. Often I get told I talk too much, so yeah.
So you're perfect.
But it's great. But I really appreciate it, man, because whether it's music and sports, you understand and can relate to a lot of stuff that I've done. So it's been fun.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Honestly, dude, I didn't know where this conversation was gonna go, and where it went. It was, like I said, I think this is one of the things that I like about doing the podcast. When you just know you found your thing that you like doing, is that you see yourself in so many people, but at the same time, everyone has a unique way of looking at it. So it makes it interesting. It's fucking fun to hear the stories. So, thank you so much, man, for sharing stuff about sports, about your family, about music, about the hat company, how it started. I think there's a lot of great parts in this conversation that for me, it's like it really resonated. So
I hope so, man. I mean, that's like the thing that I kind of enjoy the most is just at least feeling like I inspired somebody to do something maybe that they wouldn't have.
Good, man. Yeah. I think honestly, dude, if whoever's listening to this, I think there's gonna be pieces that they're definitely gonna feel some.
Do it.
Do it. Buy a fucking sewing machine.
Do it. Buy a sewing machine. Wear the hat.
Wear the hat. Dude, that's it, man.
All right.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
No problem, man. Thank you.
That's it. Hey, thanks for checking out the show. It's been awesome working on this project. And if you like it, tell a friend. And if you want to support the show, you can by 1, subscribing and liking our YouTube channel at the DMW Podcast. 2, you can go to our website and sign up to our mailing list at the dmwpodcast.com. And 3, you can follow us on Instagram at the DMW Podcast. Thanks again for all of your support. My name is Stef, and this is the Dead Man Walking Podcast.